Hi guys, it's me again. So this is actually like the fifth video I've shot today. I started like 3 a.m. I shot two videos for my board gaming channel. Then I shot a video I uploaded this morning. Then I shot this video, which I needed to reshoot. So I'm reshooting this one. So it's the fifth time I've sat down and shot a video. Hopefully I'll get it right this time. So I should be doing a review video, but I was tagged. And I thought, let's film this on Monday so I can have it up Tuesday morning for a tag video. Ted from Speculative Bookshelf, he tagged me in a tag that was created, an original tag that was created by Hannah at Hannah's Books. And it's called the Reading Shifts tag. And since he tagged me, and Ted's a very nice guy, I thought I'd do it. Could be fun. Now, the answers or questions, I don't know about the answers, the questions for this I have up on the screen from Hannah's original video because they're pretty long and I'm never going to remember them. So I'm going to kind of read them off. Hope you don't mind. And then I'll kind of answer them off the top of my head. As per my channel and per my self, I don't have anything prepped. So we're going to, actually I did answer them once. So we'll pretend I didn't answer them once, but we're going to do this. So, let's see. All right, question one. How has your reading developed over your lifetime? Do the kind of books that bring you the most pleasure now differ from the books you loved most earlier in your life? If you've seen big changes in your reading since you've matured, what might explain your changing interests? Well, I'm pretty sure every single one of us has had reading changes in our life. If you've been reading all your life and for a long time, I think it's natural, especially if you start reading when you're a kid. So I started reading the backs of sports cards, then Marvel Comics, Encyclopedia Brown, nonfiction sports books, into horror books, then the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I read horror mostly, a lot of horror throughout the 80s. The Paperbacks from Hell and Stephen King were my main reads then. And then the Star Wars Expanded Universe kicked off and they started releasing books like every month. I was reading those an awful lot. Then I didn't really get into fantasy too much right off. I was reading a little bit of Conan and things like that. There wasn't a lot available back then. I did read what I could though. And, and then I got into a little bit of fantasy for a while. And then I'm reading like pulp and crime. And I think it's natural for you to develop tastes and find new interests. You don't necessarily stop liking what you read before. You may, but in my case, I just kept adding to the list. It became more and more omnivorous as far as reading went. And so that's why I have such a huge TBR, a huge collection of books, because it went from just collecting and reading 1, 2, 3 things to a dozen different things. So yeah, absolutely. I've seen changes, and I expect I'll keep changing. And change is good. Change shows growth. And if you are a reader who changes, I think that's a positive. All right, number 2. Do you find yourself choosing different kinds of books at different periods of the year? For example, do the seasons affect what you read for pleasure? Similarly, might you read very different kinds of books while on vacation? Well, I don't really take many vacations. The last time I took a vacation, I went to Pulp Fest in Pittsburgh, and it was about books, but don't really read a lot on vacation. Especially if I go somewhere, I usually do stay-home staycations, and I still don't get a lot of reading done because me and my wife take our time together and we do things. So I don't get a lot of reading done on vacation. As far as different times of the year, not really. Not really. I always say I want to read more horror during the spooky season for Halloween. But I read horror all year round, so it kind of really doesn't happen. I also can make an emphasis to read during December horror. I call it my holiday horror, even before I had a channel, because I have so many issues with Christmas. I try to negate that with some horror reads. So that's about as close as I come to anything seasonal at all. All right, 3. Do specific experiences in your life ever shape what you chose to read? For example, did you read obsessively about child rearing when your kids were little, about gardening as spring is about to begin, about the experience of grief when someone you love died, etc.? No, not really. What happens though is if I see something like a documentary or something that spurs an interest, that I might go research it because I have an interest in it, but not in that way. For example, during COVID, I did read some books on the Spanish flu because I was curious about the similarities. And oh boy, there's a lot of the unbelievable amount of similarities and a lot of information that I learned. And studying that, I learned that how much I hate the term Spanish flu because Spain was the country least affected. They called it the Spanish flu because their very liberal media had decided to report on it when everyone else was trying to tone it down and make it sound like it was lesser. So they called it the Spanish flu because Spain was sounding the warning about it while everyone else was like, shh, we don't talk about it. This sounds very, very familiar, does it not? But yeah, but I mean, other than something from a documentary or something that sparks my interest, yeah, that's not really. Um, just like I said, if I see a documentary or a movie or something, an article, but that's about it. All right, where were we? Um, Number 4. Have there been any times in your life when circumstances have limited or changed your reading in some way, perhaps caretaking responsibilities or a big move that made it hard to find as much time to read as you'd like, or personal illness that made it harder to concentrate, or maybe just long-term travel that might have limited your book choices? How do you deal with those circumstances? So, yes, I have found that. Now I'm going to say, how do I deal with those circumstances? I just don't really read because I wasn't able. To give you an example, I've had multiple surgeries. I've had bicep replacement, repair done on both arms where they've had to reattach my biceps. I've had multiple knee surgeries. I've had reconstructive surgery on half my face. I have a plastic plate in there from being jumped. I had a blowout fracture and the bone was shattered. So yeah, during that time, I certainly didn't feel like reading, especially with the eye issue. I have no, it's you don't feel like reading. I've been sick, like I said, during COVID. I got sick twice. You'd think I would have had time, but no. The second time, especially because it almost killed me, I really did not feel like reading while I was sick. Like I said, I did read about it when I wasn't sick, but not while I was sick actively. And when I moved, definitely did not have time or way to move when I was taking care of my grandparents. Well, there was a time in my life when I was working 2 jobs, coaching 2 soccer teams. I had 2 kids, and I was taking care of my grandparents one after another. That's a lot of twos. And I did not have a lot of time. I tried to make time in between during lunch breaks, things like that. I did not get much done during that time, though. This is probably pretty normal for everyone. I'm assuming that, there are different points in your life when you're just too busy because you have so much else going on, family and health. Yeah, I think that's normal for every single human being. And, those times severely affected me. And as, I just went through a bit of a mental health crisis of my own. That's an exaggeration, but you get the point. Having other issues does cause you to put reading aside for your own for things that become very necessary in your life. That's not unusual, I think, for anybody. All right. Booktube is full of discussions of reading slumps, when dedicated readers seem to lose interest for a while in books. Sometimes they just can't find a book that appeals to them. Have you experienced a slump? If so, how do you handle it? If not, do you have any advice to give people who are experiencing slumps? Well, as far as, again, answering the last part first, I just actually did a video talking about how to get out of reading slumps. I gave, my reasons for slumps and how to get out of them when you are. So watch the video because going back over that would be a very, very long thing. But as I experience slumps, kind of. I get in the mood to do other things. I get where I don't feel like reading because there is issues going on. It's usually not the books themselves. It's usually outside issues that cause me to not want to read, cause me to not be able to read. And like I said, again, I kind of think that's, normal. It happens. And weirdly, I seem to deal with this like every November. I don't know if it's seasonal, kind of seasons change or whatever. And I've been talking to a lot of people recently who have been in similar places where they don't feel like making videos, booktubers, they don't feel like reading. I know my wife has dealt with that before, where around this time of year, just around the end of Halloween into November, things start to get, you'd feel a little different. I don't know if it's a real thing, if it's imagined things, if it's just I'm seeing it because I relate to it, but it does seem to happen, and it isn't necessarily a slump. It's just I feel the need to go do other things, except other than health issues or mental health issues. Sometimes I feel the need to just put down a book and do something else, whether it be outside activities or take time to for something else that I've neglected, or maybe I just get an urge to jump on the computer and play a PC game, and I get involved in that for a week or so and want to spend some time with that. That's you know that's about it. But as far as advice for reading slumps, I did a whole video on it. You can go find it and check it out if you want some advice. I think it's pretty good advice. All right. Booktubers also talk about book hangovers, when readers are so moved by a book that they find it difficult to move on to a new book. Have you ever felt this way? No, not from emotional reasons. I've had books that made me feel something, and I do take a minute to contemplate it. I don't go into a book hangover as I would understand it. There are times when I finish a big, exhausting book where I'll need to be like, all right, I'm done with that. I'll wait until tomorrow to start something new. Or something along that lines. But the book hangover, I don't usually get that emotionally involved with the book. I've had real life, true stories that kind of make me feel bad, make me upset, make me sad for the world sometimes. And a book hangover for me is just let's just take a moment and move on, then move on. It doesn't last for any real length of time, and it's not necessarily too much of an emotional thing. Sometimes you finish something, it's like, all right, take a moment to breathe, and then tomorrow I'll start fresh. All right, 7. Tell us about a few books that almost always work for you, something that might have remained a favorite throughout your life despite any changing reading tastes. Something that always seems to hit just the right spot when you need a lift. Or perhaps some lifetime book hangover where the text will always be at the back of your mind. Again, not really into, the book hangover aspect. Doesn't really, resonate with me. As far as books I go back to, there's several. Like I've talked about them before. I've read Outsiders repeatedly. Fahrenheit 451. To Kill a Mockingbird. Several Stephen King, especially Christine. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the graphic novel The Crow. These are some books I've gone back to and read, just because kind of you call them comfort reads, I guess. But I was like, oh, I haven't read that in a while. Let's go, back and revisit it. I think that might be kind of the closest. I don't know if that qualifies, but that would be what my answer would be. Those books. I think there might be a couple other I'm forgetting, but those books definitely repeat in my life and show up again and hold a special place in my heart, and that I've enjoyed repeatedly. All right, and that would be number 7. So number 8 is tag people. Now I'm not going to tag a bunch of people. If you want to do this, tag me and let me know you did it, that you heard it on my channel. I am going to tag Steve Donahue because he says he doesn't get tagged enough. And I got to give him, more material because he's slacking. He's only making 1 or 2 videos a day now. We got to get him back up to that 5 to 8. And also, I want to hear. I'm sure he will have fantastic rants about the book hangovers and the book slumps. I've heard him wax poetic about those things before, and he's always got fantastic takes. And I'm sure he will have an oh boy moment where he wants to talk about those. So I'm going to tag Steve because I want to hear what he has to say. I want to hear him rant on a couple of those subjects. He's so damn good at it. But other than that, if you want to do it, tag me. And anyway, thank you so much for being here again for all the videos I'm doing, trying to catch up. And remember the secret to Zen: read books, pet dogs, and listen to metal. Subscribe, and I will see you soon. Later.